From a courtside Karen straight up fighting LeBron James, to a fan throwing a vodka bottle at Lamar Odom during the last minutes of a game, here are 6 times that NBA fans went too far. Starting with the classic Karen incident, of course. As polarizing as LeBron is, there's no surprise that he's the first player on this list. Fans love to hate him, and some show it more than others. He's had many tussles with annoying fans that are enough to deserve their own separate list, but for me, his 2021 meeting with a courtside Karen tops them all. During the game between the Atlanta Hawks and the Los Angeles Lakers, this Karen, whose real name is Juliana Carlos, was seen removing her mask to shout at James, who was apparently talking smack to her husband. She spoke out about the incident too, saying that her husband was a die-hard Hawks fan who's been watching the games for over 10 years, and like many other NBA fans, he too has some issues with LeBron. Juliana didn't care much for it herself, so she was just there minding her own business. Or so she said. Anyway, all of a sudden, she notices that this off-putting back and forth is taking place between her husband and the NBA player, which angered her a lot, enough to make her get up and start hurling abuses at him, with obscene words echoing the arena, and I'm sure, LeBron being LeBron, clapped back in no time. Things escalated pretty quickly, and the couple was eventually kicked out of the game. And that was the end of that, but not on social media, of course. James himself took the incident to Twitter, joking about the courtside Karen. He spoke about his version of the incident as well, telling reporters that they probably shouldn't have been kicked out, but they probably had to, for the sake of decorum and all. Besides, it's likely that if they were allowed to remain, tensions could have gotten much worse. I mean, until then, they had only exchanged a few words, but who knows how much the drama could have escalated, maybe even resulting in things like throwing popcorn at each other, like that one fan did with Russell Westbrook. That fan just didn't know how to control himself. With the Sixers leading 98-81 against the Wizards, Westbrook suffered a very bad ankle injury, and as a result, he had to limp back to the locker room to get some much-needed rest. While he was making his way there, a disrespectful fan seated above poured a full bag of popcorn down on the player. Russell may have felt humiliated at that moment, but more than that, he felt angry. He tried going after the spectator, but had to be restrained by Wizards staff members and security guards at the game. But Russell wasn't going to let this slide. In the post-match press conference, Westbrook said that things had just gotten way out of hand. He said he wouldn't come up to him on the street and do something like this. That man survived because of those guards, and he wouldn't have otherwise. Yikes! Of course, that so-called fan also didn't completely survive. For one, he was stripped of his fan rights and was ejected from the game, along with being banned from attending any event at that arena, the Wells Fargo Center. Things could have obviously been much worse had security not stopped Russell from going over there. It could have led to a physical altercation too, like Kyle Lowry getting shoved in the middle of the game. Physical violence is always a straight no in any situation, and if it's coming from a fan during a game, well, that's just as bad as it can get. Only, the incident of Kyle being shoved here was a bit more than just a fan with bad behavior. That fan was not just a mere fan. He was actually an investor in the Golden State Warriors who was there to watch the game. Like, what the heck, dude? A crazy fan doing it is one thing, and even that is highly unacceptable. But you're literally an investor. Like, you have business with these teams. You have an active stake in this. And he didn't just shove Lowry. As you can see in the video recording of the incident, he also said some mean words to the player that led him to receive a ban as well as a huge fine. And if I were to have any say in this, I'd have him lose his business too. How can you make the NBA your whole thing when you can't even respect the players who make the game worthy? It's definitely not setting a good example for fans, that's for sure, who are already doing distasteful things as it is, like spitting on Trae Young in the middle of a pandemic. Someone carrying out an act as obscene as this must have taken a lot of courage and absolutely 0 ounces of shame, because not only will they be heckled by fans and security coming to throw them out, but they'd also have to live with the consequences of social media. However, it seems like this one fan was willing to face all of that for his 1-second glory, or whatever he was looking for, to spit on a good player. Thankfully, this guy was banned from attending any NBA games at all, which is exactly what should be done to someone who has zero remorse after doing something so disgusting. In fact, more could be done too. Trey could have pressed charges. He was well within his rights to, but according to his agent, Young refrained from doing so. He's got a big heart. Me personally, I could never. You've got to set some solid consequences for this kind of person because you never really know. I mean, one moment they're throwing popcorn and spitting at you. Before you know it, they'll start hurling water bottles as well. Wait, haven't they already done that? Remember the Kyrie Irving incident? I'm gonna be honest, I don't like Irving at all, and his anti-Semitism can never be excused. But anyone with a sane conception of humanity would know that physical abuse is wrong, no matter what. And this was exactly that. A bit of harmless taunting from the seats didn't do LeBron much harm. In fact, stuff like that is always expected during games. But having a water bottle chucked at players who are on the court, that is extremely unsafe, and you know it. As Irving was heading off the court after winning the Nets game against the Celtics, fans of the opposing team were raging, and one of them threw this bottle at his head. Luckily, Irving wasn't harmed, but the bottle could have hit anyone. Thankfully, that unsafe fan was handed a lifetime ban from the Boston Arena, and if you ask me, he should be handed one from the NBA as a whole. Still, as bad as a water bottle being thrown on the court is, it's nothing compared to the vodka bottle aimed at Lamar Odom in 2010. This incident may be old, but it's definitely one of the worst displays of fans' bad behavior toward players. There are very few reports on the incident itself, save for Odom himself confirming it. And it's very interesting to note how lightly the whole thing was taken back then. We all know it would have wreaked havoc had it happened in today's age. During the final minutes of the Celtics' victory over the Lakers, you could see the legendary Kobe Bryant shooting free throws, and while he did that, an angry fan threw an object onto the court, aiming at the players. Kobe, being the ace player that he was, obviously hit that shot, but that incident wasn't completely ignored. The ref had to walk to the scorer's table and reiterate the very basic rule of not throwing anything onto the court, which was apparently too much to fathom for some spectators who were clearly in the mood for some drama. Now, original reports cited that a bouncy ball had been thrown, and in that case, the whole thing doesn't sound too harmful. Odom had to later confirm that he saw that item could have actually been a small bottle of vodka. You know, like the ones they hand out on flights and such. That. Now, I know what you're thinking. An empty little bottle wouldn't have caused much damage from close range, but imagine if it were thrown from the balcony. It could have easily landed on someone's head, and that someone could have been anyone. It could have been Lamar or Kobe, or even young fans. Anyway, that's all from me on 6 times NBA fans went too far. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.